Why is family so important to society?
The universal stems from the specific, so I'll talk about my family. You know, I have a God-fearing, loving, faithful wife who has taught me so much about family. I'm from a broken home. Seeing her consistency in really running the household while I'm out hunting, you know, and understanding the importance of family. And
one of my favorite actors in the world is Denzel Washington. And not just because of the roles he's played, but the fact that he's always done his best to represent God in what he says and what he does. And he also comes against this victim mentality, systemic racism narrative that seems to permeate the Black community.
For Black people in particular, do you think that we can truly make change as things are right now?
well, it starts in the home. You know, if the father's not in the home, the boy will find the father in the streets. Yeah, I saw it in my generation and every generation before me and everyone since. It starts in the home. You know, if the streets raise you, then the judge becomes your mother, and you know, and prison becomes your home.
You see, Denzel talks about the things that really matter: faith, family, and freedom. He really talks about those things, especially as a father. As we recently have celebrated Father's Day is just one day. Fatherhood is for a lifetime. And you hear Denzel talk about the impact of having a father in his life.
And, you know, incarceration rates in America has been a problem, especially as opposing minorities. And Roman delves into the issues around the legal system. Do you think we've made any headway in the
I
legal
think it's more important to make headway in our own house. By the time the system comes into play, the damage is done. They're not locking up 7-year-olds.
Yeah.
You know, I was in Chicago a couple of 3-4 weeks ago, and we saw these little kids on bikes with masks on the side of their head, like 5 or 6 of them. And the driver said, yeah, they're little yummies. I said, who? He said, little yummies. Look up, Google Lil Yummy. Lil Yummy was an 11-year-old murderer.
Wow.
And you look at his picture, you'll see the headshot of him, and he's like this. And he got murdered at 11 by a 14-year-old.
Wow.
Who's doing life now, and a 16-year-old.
That makes no sense.
You blame the system? Where was his father?
Yeah.
It starts in the house. It starts in the home. And yeah, well, my father got locked up. Well, where was his father?
Yeah.
That's the truth of the matter. That's what people don't want to understand. You have to understand, when God created the family unit, he created them husband and wife, male and female, so they could procreate, so they could give him godly seed. And it talks about the importance of the father, how the father should not provoke his children to wrath, how you train up your child in the way they should go, and when they're old, they will not depart from them, how the father should admonish their children to fear and admonition of the Lord, how God expects the father to be the head, to do more than just provide, but actually to give guidance, to train, to educate. That's the role of the father. And see, when you hear Denzel talk about these are things that not too many other actors, let alone Black actors, would even touch on.
Like I did talk about my 3 closest friends, and they did, 15 to 25, one did 28, this and that. I was the only one of the 3 that had a father in my life, even though my parents were together. But I still had a father who was a gentle man and a good example, and they didn't. We can blame the system if we want, but they didn't lock any of us up at 7.
Yeah.
We were all doing enough to get locked up at 13. My parents sent me in another direction. They didn't have anybody to help them, and they kept doing what they was doing.
Because Denzel rejects that systemic racism narrative. He rejects that victim mentality narrative. He rejects that because he understands that in America, you can be whatever you want if you work hard at it, if you put your mind to it, if you're diligent. You see, the Bible talks about if you're diligent and heed the word of the Lord, you'll eat the good of the land. See, too many people don't heed the word of the Lord. They heed the word of the secular culture. They heed the word of individualism. They heed the word of selfishness. They heed the word of a secular society that focuses all on you. But the true essence of a biblical man, a biblical conservative, is to give of yourself. Is the sacrifice, that sacrificial love that Jesus demonstrated. That is the true essence of a biblical man, of fatherhood, of manhood. And Denzel nails it.
Dreams without goals are just dreams, and they ultimately fuel disappointment. So have dreams, but have goals. Life goals, yearly goals, monthly goals, daily goals. I try to give myself a goal every day. Sometimes it's just to not curse somebody out. Simple goals, but have goals. And understand that to achieve these goals, you must apply discipline and consistency. In order to achieve your goals, you must apply discipline, which you have already done, and consistency every day, not just on Tuesday and miss a few days. You have to work at it every day. You have to plan every day. You've heard the saying, we don't plan to fail, we fail to plan. Hard work works. Working really hard is what successful people do.
It is so good to have people like him. Nobody's worshiping him. Nobody's elevating him and putting him on a pedestal. No, we don't do that. The only person I worship is Jesus, okay? I don't worship any man. The only man I worship and idolize is Jesus Christ. But it's good to have people who reflect your values. And a lot of times, people may think it may come in a certain kind of package. But you have to take truth where you find it. And it's good that Denzel is speaking that truth, that he's rejecting. The way he talks about how the system doesn't cause 7-year-olds to get into trouble. Did the system cause that? No. But what I will say, Denzel, is that the push to reject and kick men out of the household, to effeminate men. Just listen to this curious take that RFK Jr. mentioned to Jordan Peterson in terms of the water and how it could be affecting the masculinity of boys.
Climate apocalypse use fear to induce something approximating the same kind of level of tyranny, as far as I'm concerned, that characterized the vaccine lockdown. Help me sort that out and understand where you stand.
I see these huge levels of depression and despair, loneliness in kids. And I don't think that there's a single cause to it. And I think blaming it on, depression about climate is probably oversimplistic. And in fact, I think a lot of the problems we see in kids, and particularly boys, it's probably underappreciated that how much of that is coming from chemical exposures, including a lot of the sexual dysphoria that we're seeing. They're swimming through a soup of toxic chemicals today, and many of those are endocrine disruptors. There's atrazine throughout our water supply. Atrazine, by the way, if you in a lab put atrazine in a tank full of frogs, it will chemically castrate and forcibly feminize every frog in there, and 10% of the frogs, the male frogs, will turn into fully viable females able to produce viable eggs. If it's doing that to frogs, it could. There's a lot of other evidence that it's doing it to human beings as well.
So when you have these chemical combinations, these drugs that are taking place, and then you have society at large that is attacking men, what do you expect? You expect there to be less and less masculinity and more effeminate men, which is resulting in the society that we have. But it's good that we have men like Denzel Washington that will stand up and speak to these things. And it's good that we can celebrate that, because being a father is probably one of the most important things I've done outside of being a Christian and being a husband. Being a father is right after that, because it's so important that I give God another generation, that we give him godly seed, true seed that's biblical, because my children will know they are not victims. They are empowered for greatness.